welcome to day 28 of my Earth Day 50 challenge, 50 videos to do from my backyard to improve our environment, your environment, any environment. People ask me a lot about compost and composting methods, and so today I'm going to talk a little bit about compost in general. One of the things that you have to bear in mind is this thing called carbon to nitrogen ratio, or greens and browns. I think greens and browns is much easier. If you want to delve into the science, you'll see that they say usually about 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen, and that sounds really sciencey, which most people don't get when they're in the garden. But if you can remember 1 to 3 for greens to browns is a good way to sort of do your composting in terms of the bulk materials that go into the composter. This is a tumbler that I got from one of my clients. My wife is not a fan of just throwing household compost onto the pile for animal purpose and stuff like that. So I compromised and I said, let's give this a try. These are really great for household composting, but you can see it doesn't have a lot of volume if you're cleaning up your yard of all the leaves and stuff like that. But when you're tending to the yard and you get a little bit of compost from inside, you can dump it in there, and then so for instance, this is relatively empty right now. There's a little bit of compost in there, and today I have coffee grinds, which are carbon, maybe a little bit of nitrogen. I got some eggshells and some peels and stuff like that. So that stuff has a lot of what we call nitrogen. And I even got a little bit of anaerobic activity happening down in there. We'll wash this out later. And then what we want to do is we want to throw in some actual greens. And so when I weed around the yard, typically I'm just taking everything that I find to throw it up in the compost pile, and then I'm just, when I'm pulling out a lot of the greens, I'm also pulling out some browns. But I'm going to put in about 1/3 of greens for this demonstration. And as you're weeding, you're also pulling up soil a lot of time because you're getting the roots out, and you can put all that in there, which is good stuff. And then you take some browns or carbon. So if you have your compost pile full of leaves from the fall, you just grab some from the back of it or anywhere around the yard, and you throw some browns in there. And it's okay if it's a little sticky, because that'll actually help with the aeration in there. And so now my unit is about halfway full. I have more browns there if I want. I'm thinking my ratio is about right, but maybe I need a little bit more carbon in there. And now you take a little bit of some compost, which has some microbes in it already. You can just throw a little bit in there. That'll help speed things up. And then, without water, not much is going to happen in here, especially when it's covered and things like that. So in my blue container here, I have a little bit of rainwater that was captured. And the idea is that your compost should be like a sponge that was just used, where you squeeze it out and it's moist but not holding water, but not too dry either, right? And so then we can put on our top here. Now if we just let it stay in there, it would do the same thing. But if we want to give it a little extra, didn't quite get that on correct. All right, there we go. So we can just spin it. And the spinning, what it's doing is it's getting oxygen. It's mixing all that stuff together, and if you turn that every few days, it'll speed up. This will be a fast composter. It's also getting heat from the sun because it's black. And so this is one method. I can tell you that a lot of clients do not get how to use these, and sometimes they become smelly because there's anaerobic bacteria. They have too much water in there, or they don't understand the carbon to nitrogen, or even how to empty it out. So once this gets broken down, we'll keep throwing stuff from the house into here, turn it over enough, and then we'll put it into my lazy compost pile. And so I'll dig out the compost, and then as the summer goes on, I'll just start throwing stuff back in here. In the fall, I take all my leaves and put them up here, and I take all my pots and I'll empty out the soil that was in the pot on top of the leaves, and then I'll bury the pots in the compost here. And if I have plants that I'm trying to overwinter in pots, I put them into the compost. And this is a southern exposure, but it's hidden by some shrubs, so it's kind of a nice little spot for compost. Everybody always says, Chris, I want to see your compost, and my compost is just hide it, throw it out away, and just let nature do it. There's that saying that says compost happens, and it'll happen no matter how good you are with the science, but if you're a little bit more thoughtful, you get compost more quickly. My favorite book on this subject is a book called Let It Rot. It takes about, I don't know, half hour, 40 minutes to read. If you can find it in the stores or online. It's such an easy read, but it lets you understand the deep science, but also say anything you do is going to be okay. So with that, I hope everybody else is okay these days, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow.
Go.
All right, I have 17 donors, aiming for 50 for my Rock to Rock challenge. I'd like to thank David Weinreb, Marlene Edelstein, Stephen Kremen Mendez, Kirsten Levinson, and of course, Mom. Hope you're all doing well, and look us up on Rock to Rock 2020.